the all or nothing thing. Like the drink's got to come out of your hands. You can't play footsie with it anymore. It's done. You've crossed that threshold. There's no going back. There's a certain threshold that you cross with drinking and drugging. There's no hope for moderation. I know that's going to sting to hear some people that are still in that phase.
Yeah.
There's just no way to do it. And trust me, I have tried. I tried for 4 years, right? 4 years straight of just experimenting with moderation, right?
This is the KnockinDoorzDown podcast for those who look to be inspired by individuals who have turned their lives around, be it from the depths of addiction, trauma, physical and mental health issues, and found a way to live a purposeful life. Because that's what Knocking Doors Down is all about. And my guest is Matt Gardiner, mastermind behind Recovery Roadmap, where I'm not only a friend, I'm a client. Yes, I have worked one-on-one with Matt, as well as in group settings during my recovery, which I'm excited to say, coming up on 3 years, and Matt's been a vital part of that. As well, Matt is working with another group called Freedom from Alcohol, doing amazing work. Matt and I dig into some great stuff. We have a lot of laughs because of our friendship. We also talk, both of us recently lost some pets that were near and dear to our heart. And Matt shares what he learned through that process of losing his cat that he had had for a long time, that it really taught him about love and being attentive to those you care about. As well, we talk about changing the story you tell yourself about yourself and how that is life transforming. Plus, we dig into knowing the why behind the substance use and abuse. Plus, we dig into the concept of no days off. Are there really ever days off? And if not, what do we mean by it? Plus, he and I reminisce about how moderation just wasn't an option for us, much like many other people. We have a wonderful time. You're going to get a lot out of this conversation. So do me a favor, hit that subscribe button, turn the bell on to full alerts so every time I post content here on Knocking Doors Down, you get it. Leave a thumb up on the video and a comment. And hey, while you're at it, why not share with somebody else? I appreciate you. My friend Matt Gardiner, the mastermind of Recovery Roadmap, doing Freedom from Alcohol, which I really haven't dug in with you on. I want to find out more about that. It's good to see you, my friend.
Yeah, always good to see you as well, Jason. Thanks for having me back on. And yeah, this is how we first met, right? How we first met story is I was on your show some moons ago. I was say July of 2022, I believe, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's been
a
good year and a half, maybe about. Yeah, something like that. You know, I needed some Canada in my life, so it was like time to connect with you.
Yeah, that's right. We call it up here CanCon, so Canadian content. It's like an actual bylaw on the radio stations. You have to play X amount of or X percentage of Canadian content. So we get a lot of Tragically Hip and Nickelback up here. I know you're a big fan of Nickelback, so yeah, man, you fit in right in up here. Let me tell you, you're a great honorary Canadian.
So it's I do have lineage that traces back.
Exactly.
So you get like a lot of stations with Brian Adams. It's like
a lot of Brian Adams, man.
69 one more time.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, he's got a broad spectrum of hits. But yeah, Summer 69's up there. The Robin Hood soundtrack, the Everything I Do It For You. That one comes on, he's got some stuff.
Yeah, we were watching, I think it was the TED TV show off of the movies, the ones that Seth MacFarlane did.
Yes.
And there's a scene and they're like, so you're saying everything you do it for us? Yes, everything I do it for you.
For you, yeah.
Oh, we got you.
Yeah. Oh, tremendous.
Shoot.
So good.
Hey, I love gratitude. You and I have conversations about it actually quite frequently.
Yeah.
Three things you're grateful for today, my friend.
Yeah, this is a good one. Just from, our previous conversation, there's a bit of a transition potentially happening in my life. So I'm happy for my house today. Like, I'm really grateful. Just not sure how much longer I'll be in this place. It's been coming up on 11 years now. So very grateful for my house and my yard. Also, my dogs. We just recently had one of our pack cross the Rainbow Bridge, our cat, Trout. So both the dogs, specifically my Beagle, has been taking it quite hard. He's kind of got that dog depression thing going on. So I'm really grateful for both of them. And then grateful for my wife, my lovely wife, Darcy, who works on the roads. So just her presence in my life, regardless if she's here or not. So that would be my top three. How about yourself?
Yeah, Darcy's the best, man. Boy. I always have to go higher power first and foremost because that's what I
Mm,
answer to every morning, and just ask to be guided and like let it work through
yeah.
me. As you know, with the work, just to let people know, Matt's been a big part of my recovery, especially over the last 2 years. It's been almost 2 years, huh?
Close to 2 years. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so I've been doing some. Matt's helped me with a lot of work, so we're gonna actually get into some of that because I really want to share that with people and let them know how you're available to maybe help them through that way.
Definitely.
So that higher power, my relationships. I mean, I've met so many wonderful people all over the United States that and globe, really. Like I was thinking about, it, I'm like, man, I have literally talked to someone on every continent on this podcast
Wow.
except Antarctica. And I'm waiting to figure that I'm going
Yeah,
to figure
right.
that out.
Yeah.
Uh,
Not sure what the population is. Is that where Santa is? No, Antarctica's
no,
south, right? Okay.
yeah,
It'd be like
North Pole.
Santa Claus. Yeah, yeah.
Santa
Santa
Claus.
Claus. There you go. Is a
Crumpus?
Mantar,
I
I
don't
think.
know. Where is Crumpus? I don't
Yeah,
know.
Crumpus. I think he was German, isn't he?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
German. You're right.
yeah, you got that covered.
And
Yeah.
then thirdly, I don't think we I don't think we embrace love in the whole spectrum enough. I know that you had your kitty cat go over the rainbow bridge, and we had our dog go missing.
Yeah.
And we're kind of at that assumption point that that too would happen. And and it's hard. You come home, your pets become a part of your life. I mean,
Mhm.
how many of our conversations where your cat jumped up and
Yeah, man.
wants your
Every
attention? And
time.
I've had it where we've done some of our calls and meetings in our recovery group that you lead, and Layla's barking or would poke her head in, and so
Love
it's
that. Love
like
that stuff. Yeah.
it's hard and it hurts, but yet at the same time you get to embrace that beauty of loving something. And sometimes that loss, it like in losing a dear person near the end of last year too, that it's like I really examined love a lot more and that
Mm,
appreciation for the time that you get. So I
yeah.
just
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of gratitude for love. Like it's
Yeah.
in the whole spectrum, not just the
Yeah.
feel good stuff, but the
Yeah.
whole spectrum of it.
Love that, man. That's
Yeah.
I just want to share it's, I guess, a quick story about like what my cat taught me for sure. It's like, she'd been around for, it was 16 and a half years. So I think that's, depending on which website you look at, anywhere between 85 and 100 cat years. So she was old, and you could tell having a hard time. It was right as a cold snap was occurring here up here in Edmonton. So it was like literally minus 50 with the wind, and that's Celsius. So it's around the same for Fahrenheit when you get that low
Yeah.
anyways. So she was just having a tough go of it, right? And so was time. And it was actually, I've had a couple of dogs that we've put down, and it was very peaceful. And this one, for whatever reason, it was kind of traumatic. Like she had a hard time with the sedatives, and yeah, it was not a pleasant experience. It was a little bit traumatic. And then the next day, even though like I knew it was time, and I've had this, put my childhood dog down, I've done this, so I'm like, okay, I know what to expect, right? I didn't really know though. It's like the next day, I was like, man, I got up to feed her, right? She's so consistent is basically where I'm going with
Right.
this. Cats are so more so than dogs even. They just have these patterns. And she'll, like you say, she'll hop up anytime I'm on the computer, boom, she's on my lap. Almost to the point it's like it was like annoying, you know what I mean? But then it's instantly when you're talking about love, like like I missed it immediately. And I didn't expect that. I thought it was like, okay, no, it was her time. I've had, my dad passed away. Some of my best friend at 33 passed away suddenly. And I have this like, relationship spiritually with like, this idea that they're still in my life, sometimes even more so than they were before, right? I have a better relationship with my dad, arguably, now than I did when he was here, and that sort of thing. So I comforted by that, but there was still something that was pulling at me a bit. And that was like, man, I feel like I sort of overlooked her, right? Because she was so consistent. And I saw that in myself as well. That's like one of my buttons, like this perception that I get overlooked because like I'm a constant in a lot of different people's lives. And I wish that I have this desire to be like more to people. Um, Not realizing that, yeah, it's just, I don't know, it's really hard to explain. I guess it's just as
No,
that.
I
I
get
felt like
it.
I was overlooking her, and I felt there was like this, like, yeah, there's kind of like, sore spot in my heart from it for a couple of days, and
Yeah.
even talking about it now, it's I wanted to share that because it was on the subject of love and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, much love for her, and like I said, my dog Bentley, we couldn't figure out what was wrong with him because he gets sore stomach every now and then, as especially purebreds tend to. But it wasn't that. And then I looked up the symptoms as like the depression, right? Because he got him when he was a puppy, and he was essentially kind of raised almost by this
Yeah.
cat, right? And so the pack member is gone, and yeah, so he's kind of feeling it too. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's what's going on over here for sure.
No, I started to get a little wet-eyed there,
Yeah,
hearing you talk
yeah,
about. So I know it's,
yeah.
yeah, and I get what you're saying too about how you with other people. I know for me, I don't know that it's a character defect or whatever, because I just love in the way that I love,
Mm,
like checking in on people. And I was thinking
yeah,
about this morning, an old coworker that I was like, wow, that freaking guy never checks in on me. Why am I going to check on him?
sure.
And it's like,
Yeah,
well, that's kind of missing the point.
right.
Like you
That's
are who
conditional.
you are
Yeah,
who you are, and maybe that's what your gift is, to reach out and communicate with people in that way. And so it's
yeah,
like
yeah.
not everybody loves the same. It's all different
Yes.
levels,
Yeah.
and in the reality too that I've had to accept, and I think we've talked about this, is some people will mean more to you than you mean to them. And you'll
Yep.
mean more to some people than they mean to you. And that's just how it is. And it's okay.
Yeah.
Like it's
That's right.
totally okay.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's yeah, a great way of putting it. And one of the lessons that I learned from that was through the band that I played. So I've played in a band for um yeah, 17 years I think, with the drummer. And early on it was like, you know, I'm the songwriter, and I'm just like, why are wondering why I'm not kind of getting the same buy-in with the guys, and they're happy to well, it was early 20s too, so I was just like, why aren't these guys getting the same buy-in? Why aren't they as excited? And I had this realization one day. It's like, well, this like these are like I wrote these songs, and I
Yeah.
should be grateful, and I am grateful that they choose to play these songs and support me with something that I've created. And I just really changed my mindset around it. And very much to your point, it's like, yeah, they love them. They love playing it. They love supporting me and all that. It's just different. It's a different like level, right? And yeah, the expectation or the condition, it's a sort of a conditional love that I was placing upon them, or like wondering why aren't you in the same, level as me, is like unrealistic, unfair. Yeah, it's like kind of out of the ego a bit. It's just a lesson I had to learn, right? And then as soon as I was able to switch the mindset and go into, like you say, the gratitude part. I'm super lucky that my best friends want to help me get these songs out of my head and give them some life. And that's the way that they show, the love and appreciation. So
Yeah.
just switching the mindset was all, huge, huge.
Well, mindset's just huge for life in general. And it's some of the work that you've done with me. We've done story work where it was, things that I would be struggling with. And we would really write out the story that I was telling myself about myself, and the
Yeah.
ability to go in and change that story, which we all have, because I
Yeah.
don't know if people realize this, but our memory and imagination sit in the same part of our brain.
Mm,
So it's like,
right.
the way you, and I've had this because I'll check in with my brother, my best friend, my parents to a certain extent on things, and ask them about things that happened or how they went, to get their side of it too, because like memory can be fallible, man. Like
Oh,
certain,
big time. Yeah.
like it took me a long time, and I've talked about it with you, the car accident that I was in.
Mhm.
My story was, for the longest time, was, oh, a dog ran out in front of me.
Mm,
No,
okay.
I did
Yeah.
that on purpose because I didn't want to live anymore.
Ooh.
And so
Oof.
it took me a while to like have to ditch that story
Mhm.
in my recovery, and being like, oh, I got to be more genuine with this.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
so, we can do that. We can convince ourselves. It's like
Oh, for sure.
right. How many people have you worked with that, I'm the worst piece of shit on the planet. I'm
Hmm.
not worthy of anything.
Yeah.
I'm a god awful, terrible person. It's like, are you really the worst person on the
Yeah.
planet? Is
The
that real?
worst.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I
Yeah.
mean, kind of, the story work and that you're doing,
Mhm.
and not only your value, but what you've seen with people that you've worked with.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's like the old Carl Jung uh, statement. It's like change your story, change your life, right? And there's an old Stoic quote that I really like. It's something in the similar to it's not your life circumstances that get you, it's your story about your life circumstances that get you, right? Things just happen, and the universe gives you it's all about like the way you frame it, right? It's like you have an opportunity or you have a problem, right? It really what how you decide to focus on something, right? And words are important, right? So the story work process is like it's breathing. How is your breathing? Are you in a mild stress response, right? A lot of these old stories, if you're bringing up and they're problematic in some fashion, I guarantee you're either holding your breath or like when you're typing it up, or you have that shallow chest breathing, which is like a stress response, right? So you know, I've heard a great quote. It's something along the lines of, fear and excitement show up the same in the body.
Mm.
It's just really, it's again, it's like the mindset that you have. Are you going to be curious? Are you going to follow that excitement, or are you going to retract and be fearful of it? And there was another one, just to take that quote one step further. It said something along the lines of like fear is excitement without the breath. So if you
Mm.
can tell yourself to take a nice big deep breath, if you have this like anxiety, this fear about something, you're nervous about a job interview, just do that, the deep breathing, right? The deep diaphragmatic breathing, even three to five big deep breaths, 4 seconds in, 4 second exhale. And then you're going to signal to your body, no, this is, and then you'll have that connection, the body mind connection of like, no, I'm excited about this. You're calming yourself down. You can get your wits about you. And then you can convert that otherwise nervousness or fear or anxiety into an excitement and a curiosity. Right. And that's really different. I'm sure for you, when you're doing some of the MMA gigs, right? Where it's just like, man, you got that, you could either be fearful, but you got that like kind of swagger because you had the experience, right? But probably the first time you did it, I'm sure you were a lot more fearful than you were nervous, right? But my point is, it's like very similar the way it shows up. For me, I'm playing live music. It's the same thing. I have confidence and competency now that I just feel the excitement. I imagine to be the same way with like public speakers where like, hey, I've done this. And what used to be fear is now excitement. And that's kind of where I'm going with this, is like the mindset shift and then adding the breath. And then, yeah, like we were saying with the story work. So, thanks for bringing that up. It is so important. And like when we talk about it in, say, in early sobriety, it's like, what are the old stories? Okay, so obviously triage is get the drink out of the hand, right? Of course,
Yeah,
right?
right.
That's number one.
Get the
But
drink or
that
drug or whatever it
or
is. Yeah.
drink or drug or whatever it
Yeah.
is, get that out of your hand, and that's triage. So that's step one. And then after that, it's like the Gabor Mate thing of addiction, or sorry, yeah. Say for example, alcohol. Alcohol is the secondary problem.
Hmm.
The primary problem is why you're drinking, right?
Yeah.
And so a lot of people put a lot of the effort into the alcohol, and again, just removing the alcohol, and then that's what you're focused on. Just don't drink, don't drink. Well, your focus is still very much on drinking, and then that's where the FOMO comes in. That's where the resentment comes in. That's where the dry drunk behavior comes in. If you don't change anything else in your life other than just pulling out alcohol, man, you're playing with fire. First off, you're
Yeah.
relying on willpower. You're going to be resentful to other people. You know what I mean? So yeah,
Yes,
somewhere in
I
your
do.
yes, right. We've been there,
Yeah.
and that's where you have those slip ups, right? That's where you can have those backslides. If all you change is just removing something, oh man, it's just it's leaving you open to having that those backslides, isn't it? So yeah, that's
Tremendously.
what I'd love to be able to, just speak to the story work, the mindset aspect. But if you have anything kind of
Yeah, no,
summarize or get into that,
I want to get into that more. And yeah,
yeah,
you brought up it's funny, depending on where you live, we all say Gabor Mate a little bit different.
yeah, right. Gabber, what did I say? Gabber.
Yeah, I don't know what's right or wrong, but and he does really talk about the substance use disorder from a different framework. A lot of people say
Yes.
disease, whereas he really targets the nervous system response and the desire to
Mhm.
change that. Which which I put a tremendous amount of weight in it. I don't discount it from the disease type of approach, but I mean, it really is at the end of the day, we're looking to change how our body is feeling in the moment. I mean, you said it right
Yes.
there. You were making me think about what doing the MMA ring announcing events. And the reason I was chuckling was, well, because I wasn't sober when I started those. It was when I had to start doing them sober. And the part of my brain that like everything that I care about, that I enjoy to do, my brain tries to talk me out of doing it just prior.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah.
Yeah. And then once I get in there, like I have to just kind of, I have to go like get the crowd going, because I get this huge adrenaline rush, and it's like that shaky adrenaline rush.
Yeah.
And
right.
I got to let that settle down. And then once I can get there, then it's like, oh, I'm good to go.
Then we're good to go. Yeah.
But it was, I would drink to avoid that rush that I would get, because I didn't like it. It was an overwhelming feeling at one time. So it was,
Definitely.
again, that reframing, with the story work.
Yeah, for sure. And,
Knockin' Doors Down by Carlos Vieira, now available wherever you get audiobooks.
I wasn't done partying, and I didn't want the binge to end. I think I knew that when I finally got home, I'd have to face what I had done, and I wasn't ready to do that. Being responsible for my actions wasn't something I was looking forward to. I had abandoned my wife and baby, my family, and my business. I wanted to avoid the shame of returning to what I had left behind. Even though I was not yet going home, I wasn't sure I had enough resources to continue the binge.
Click the link in the podcast description to find out more.
Back to Storyworks, like for me, and I say on my my Instagram and TikTok a lot, is just like, it's not basically taking that Stoic quote and just plunking in the word alcohol. So it's not alcohol necessarily. It is your story about alcohol, right? So the justifications that we come up with, and obviously on your, it's beyond alcohol, so it could be your drug of choice, right? Insert that into that. So it's basically, it's not, and I'm not suggesting that it's not addictive or anything like that. Certainly it is, and again, that's why step one is just to get it away from me, right? But then what is left? Okay, well, what are the justifications for you doing it? What are the reasons? What is the why? Why were you drinking? Why were you using? And that's where we get into. And this is like, start to like debunk it. And as you know, with the story process, it's like step one is like type it up or journal it. And I think a lot of guys that I've been working with recently that are not big journalers, right? Is for whatever reason, it's getting better. Like we're getting there, right? But so just getting those thoughts out of your head and onto a piece of paper or on the Google Doc is huge, right? It's like up and out. It's just the energetic experience of getting it out of you. And then you have this like objectivity to it, right? I know it's happened with you a few times where you're like reading, it's like, I'm reading it I'm like, it's almost like I'm reading about like a friend of mine versus me, right? It's taking you're in the story like this, but then as soon as you get out, it's like, okay, there's some distance here now, and then you can like start analyzing it. Cause a lot of times when you're in the moment, when you're speaking, and especially when I'm speaking to myself in my head, man, mile a minute, not really finishing sentences. I'm just like, because I know what I'm thinking, you know what I mean? So like, I'll just do sentence fragments and just blah, 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 blah. So much stuff going on, right? So when you can get sort of a cohesive, well, potentially cohesive, articulate, story up, and then you're just like, geez, like, am I actually saying this stuff to myself and to other people? And yeah, it's a real eye-opening experience. And then as you know, you read it out loud, and that it really transforms everything when you read it out loud. I thought it was going to be funny. I wrote a story about like what my self-doubt, or I guess my inner critic will say, what he says, right? And I thought I just nailed it. I'm like, oh man, Darcy's going to think this is so funny. And I'm just like, yeah, and I go and read it to her, and I just like started crying, because then she's like, you don't actually think about this way about yourself. I'm like, yeah, I guess I do, wow. And really strange. So it's just like this power of getting the story out on paper. And just so you get specific, just so people know what we're talking about. Like if, just type up like some of the justifications you have, like drinking is a reward to me. Drinking helps me relax at the end of a long day. I deserve it. And just start typing that up, and then check in with how you feel about it when you typed it up.
Yeah.
you know, because your body has some bull detectors in it as well, right?
Yeah.
Right? Like, I don't know about that. And then you
yeah.
read it out loud and just see how you feel about that story. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
And then from there, you go in there, like, you know, not to get too far down the rabbit hole with it, but you know, the rewriting comes in is translating it. So if there's like something that doesn't cross the BS detector, I'm like, okay, no, something's there. Let's investigate that. And oftentimes, again, the power of words, as you know, is usually just plucking out a couple words, putting a couple new ones in there. The sentence has a completely different energy to it. It goes from something that's like negation riddled or like kind of dismissive of yourself or of somebody else. And then you change a couple words in it. It's still in your words. It's still part of your story, but you've just plucked out a couple, replaced in a couple more. And all of a sudden it's like an affirmation statement. So when we're so used to having like, you know, the subconscious brain, the different conditioning that we've had over years, oftentimes since childhood, when you're talking about reasons why we do things, why we have an achiever, because we're, you know, trying to impress a parent, right? And we're just not realizing we're still running this program, this pattern since like we were 7 years old or 5 years old, you know, and it's just echoed into our adulthoods and again, our relationships in our adulthood. So that takes a while to, you know, think of these big, deep grooves in our brains, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, to be able to come up with an affirmation essentially that's based out of that exact language that we're using, but just changed a little bit and has a positive, again, an affirmation to it. And then add some breathing into it, inviting those words into your body. That's another thing that's missing, I think, with affirmations. You can kind of cerebrally understand them and say them. But if they're in your own words and then you invite them into your body with breath, you know, oftentimes if I get the right one for myself, I'll get the goosebump feeling. And my body's like, yes, thank you. Like, thank you for like, you know, tweaking that. Right. And then all of a sudden you have this like neutralizing statement to like this story that's literally been sort of haunting you or just running the show in the background. And you can catch yourself now because you're aware of it. And then you have this like neutralizing statement that's actually true. And it comes from the heart. And it really helps just like, okay, no, this is actually what's going on now, you know? So translations, affirmations, and yeah, it's super important. Right. And you know, just to kind of bring it back to what we're talking about with mindset, like it's the most important part, I think, of, for me, and just for the work that I do with people is like, again, it's like creating a new identity and realizing what you actually want out of your life and everything, right? It's easy to remember. It's easy to list what you don't want, right? It's like, okay, I know. But when you're talking about like, okay, what is your dream job? A lot of people, even myself included, for a while, I'd be like, I'm not really sure. Like I can list a bunch of stuff I'd never want to experience again. But, you know, when you start getting into it, it's like, and that's, you know, that's why change can be challenging for people. So this is where a lot of this can come in. It starts walking you into this new way of thinking about yourself. Again, the language that you're using with yourself, you're aware of, oh, I'm talking myself right now. Pause that, you know, neutralize it, feel good about yourself again, you know, and then all of a sudden you're walking yourself into this new mindset and essentially a new identity at that point. And then from the new identity, you know, if you picture a triangle, you got at the top, your identity is a non-drinker or however you want to identify. From there, you're like, okay, well, what does a non-drinker do? What are those habits that, you know, and that's important. Like you and I both keep up with these in our personal lives. What are those habits that are going to keep me a non-drinker? So, you know, you're waking up a little bit earlier every day, doing like the prayer, doing the meditation, you know, obviously not drinking is a big one, you know, and whatever you need to do with relationships, like making sure that you're present in relationships, these different things that you weren't doing before. Right. And then from there, on the other side of the triangle is it's like the evidence, the beliefs, right? And the only way you're going to get like beliefs is by building up that evidence in yourself, by showing up every day, being consistent. And then all of a sudden, boom, you have this brand new identity. And you know, it seems overwhelming. And that's why there's, you know, people like myself, you around coaches that'll help you because it's like this wide open space. And I think that's why another reason why people have a hard time changing is because goddamn, where do you start? It's quite scary. It's one thing to know something about yourself that you need to change, but then to actually change it, you really need that mindset shift. Otherwise, you know, it's like the awareness, it's like, what is it? The knowledge is, I'm saying like, it's the wrong word.
Knowledge is power.
Knowledge is power, but like only if you integrate the knowledge, right? Otherwise it's just
application.
Yes, thank you. That's the word.
Yeah.
As opposed to, yeah, like I think that is where a lot of people kind of stop or get stalled in the self development journey. It's like, oh, now I know that about myself. Okay,
Right.
they just go like, okay, you got to do something with that knowledge now, and that's
Yeah.
why there's guys like you or I or many different people out there to help people walk into this like the life of their dreams, or at least a life that's far better than what it was months ago, sort of thing, right?
Absolutely. Well, and I think the thing with that is, I hate the term self-help because
Right.
because it's not help if it's not self if you're asking for help,
Sure. Sure.
and
Yeah.
and I think we need to kind of get out of that mindset of calling like personal growth or anything personal growth or self-help. No. Two totally different things. And we all need mentors through certain situations. I have them, you have them, and then we can be mentors to other people as you and I are. And, you do an amazing job with your coaching. I know because I've been one of the people you've worked with.
Thanks, buddy.
I can't endorse it enough. So I think it's trying to get people to, and you helped me with this without me realizing it, but in reflection that I had to get a little bit out of my own way. And even though I asked for help in my sobriety, I needed to continue to ask for help for the growth that I wanted to achieve. I needed tools from someone else, some guidance from someone else to help me break through a lot of things. And and I still do. I mean, gosh, we talk regularly. I've got other, people that went from indirect mentors to direct mentors, and it's important. Like help, just ask for help and then be of help or of service, as a lot of us call it in recovery.
Yes.
It's going to come back to you. I don't know how many people I have conversations with and I go, oh, I'm not doing that. And it's like you were saying, the knowledge without the application. It's like, now, buddy, you've got no excuses. There's no drinking that gets in the way of the application of this. And so it's almost
you're almost worse off when you're in that stage, because then you know better. Right. Whereas before, at least you're like, well, you hadn't learned those lessons yet. You know what I mean? You hadn't crossed that bridge yet, but now you've crossed the bridge. So you can't go back. You know what I mean? Like, you've crossed the threshold with the drinking. You've crossed the threshold with the awareness and the consciousness around your own behavior. You've watched yourself do this. You've identified there's a problem. There's only one way to go at that stage, right? I mean, in my opinion, right? Obviously, obviously you can go the other way, but it's, oh man, it's just adding so much extra pain that doesn't need to be there, right?
And if you sit in that, I mean, give me your take. And if you sit in that, that's gonna be the doldrums that come back in recovery or remain in recovery. You and I have both shared that we've had this feeling at times where we mentally, emotionally, or even at times physically and spiritually, all of them maybe at one particular time, we're feeling all of it. And that's when that scary thought of, well, if I feel this, I might as well start drinking again or using again, whatever the thing is. Yeah. And it's like, that's a scary time where it's like, ooh, we better get to some application of this knowledge.
Definitely, man. That's like, you and I both have, I mean, that's happened to both of us. And that's something we've connected over, right? Which is a good thing. And it's an important thing to say. So I'm glad you brought it up, for sure. That was like, I would say if there was one, number one cause for me to slip up, relapse, whatever word you want to say for it, it was exactly that. It'd usually be around, where they talk about the pink cloud, that week 3 sort of thing, somewhere between day 18 and 21, almost like clockwork. And that's why I say very specific about the days, because trust me, I very much remember it. And it was like, I've been going to the gym every day. I changed my eating habits. I was sleeping well. I got the morning routine going on. I was doing all this stuff, right? And I was reaping the benefits and so forth. And then there would just be that dip. And it was enough to be like, wow, man, like, and it's ego based, of course. And I understand that. I think I did to a degree as well. But either way, man, it was like clockwork. And I would just be like, well, if I'm doing everything right and I feel like I'm just going to drink then, and every single time thinking like, okay, well, I've made enough progress in other elements of my life that this time I'll be able to do moderation. And, and literally it's nonsense, man. It was like close to 4 years after I had been sober for 3+ years. 4 years of doing this nonsense of like moderation techniques and all that. And, yeah, painful, very painful.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, everything else leveling up in my life. So then it's just kind of like, well, but this one fucking thing I can't figure out and wasn't meant to figure out. I mean, I guess I did figure it out at the end of the day, right? As we're talking, right? But in the context at that time that I was trying to, certainly didn't work out. You just get back to what you're saying about like the mentoring and all that. Yeah. Like I'm going to have coaches and mentors, the rest of my life. And I know, honestly, dude, if you told me like 2.5 years ago that I would have taken this path and the money that I've spent on my own coaches, like for me, like my own mentors,
Right.
been like, whoa, like what are you doing, man? And it's so confused. Like I have a post out this I usually try and put in perspective. Like I would spend $700 a month consistently, sometimes more, right? And that's just like a 6-pack a day and going out on the weekends. That's $700. That's not even like the poor eating decisions I make that don't airs at 3 a.m. None of that factored in. That's just alcohol. $700 quite easily. And, that might sound like a lot, but, it's $20 a day and then a bit extra on the weekends. It's really not that much, right?
Yeah.
And then yet when it came time to spend $50 on a gym membership, oh man,
Right.
that's so much. I can't do that. Right. So like the investing in yourself, again, the mindset shift of like self-care, the way I viewed it before was a 6-pack so I could go chill on the couch. And that was my self-care routine.
Yep.
Versus now, completely different, right? The gym memberships, the yoga passes, the the retreats that I go on, the coaching packages that I purchased for myself. And I don't even bat an eye at it now, but I had to walk myself out of that and I had to believe in myself. And that's where, again, that self-belief comes from showing up every day, the consistent habits, and then identifying differently. And you can't necessarily you can't identify unless you're like all in, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I was never going to identify as a non-drinker or sober or whichever, alcohol free, unless I just did. It's like the Michael Jordan quote. It's 100% is easier than 99% because 99%, the way the human brain works, and this, you're going to be focused on the 1%. You'll be like, well, when is the 1%? I can still drink, right? Like, or like the cheat day. Like if somebody's on a diet and they got the cheat day it's similar, right? It's like, okay, I got on Saturday, I can eat donuts and ice cream and all that. That's all you're thinking about, right? Like the rest of the week is just like white knuckling. So, I've always liked that quote, just to do something every day, right? Like, show up. It's 100% is easier than 99%.
Well, and it's the, I think the more people embrace no days off, the better that it's going to be. And I'm just saying this from personal experience and some of the challenges that I'm having lately, be it diet or movement or whatever it is. I've got a couple things that are pretty solid, but these other things that I know that need to be there, that application, it's like, I got to stop dipping my toe a little there. My story around drinking's pretty solid, but I'm never going to, you never know. I'm not arrogant about that, but I can go to the story pretty quick of how it's going to play out real fast. If I were to make that choice to go and pick up again. And, I think it's important. What you're saying is you're going to have to be all in with this, because we were all in when we were drinking. We absolutely were. But everything that went around it, and like, women love me when I'm out, and all this bullshit that's not true.
Yeah. Again, the illusionary stories that you tell yourself when you're inebriated. Sure. You say, like, when you say the no days off thing, like, let's break it down a little bit too, because like, I know, the culture that we have, especially here in North America, or in like, the States and Canada, and that grinder culture. And I know that's starting to get tempered, which is very healthy. And I'm happy to see that. And I myself am walking myself out of this whole idea that I have to be, the pressure language, I have to be working. I had this idea, the collapsed distinction, right, of my self-worth and what I do, they're inseparable. They're one and the same. And now I'm, slowly pulling that apart and realizing, okay, no, I don't have to be working every second of every day. In fact, it's much more beneficial to me to take those quiet times, 20 minutes here, 10 minutes there, take breaks, right? But that wasn't how I was, certainly wasn't conditioned in my old job. And then of course, this like race to get to this, out of this survival when I did the career pivot into sober coaching, obviously not able to monetize it for, like with most people, when they start a business, it's that first year is pretty touch and go, right? I obviously lost money for what I invested into it. And then second year, it's starting to come back up. So I say that to say, it was like, every bone and cell in my body, especially the way that I've been raised, and was to do this grinder thing. But, we get back to what you're saying. What I've learned is, and like what you've been doing with your morning routine too, it doesn't have, and this is tough for guys like you and I, and anybody that's listening to this has that addictive personality. Things don't have to be all or none. You know what I mean? You don't have to go to the gym for 3 hours a day in order to be successful at going to the gym. No, you can do a little bit of working out at home for 10 minutes. 10 minutes is 1% of your day. If you're awake 1,000 minutes, which is about 17 and a half hours, that's 1,000 minutes. So 10 minutes of your day is 1%. You hear a lot about like the 1% gain a day. So if you're doing just like, if you read a book for 10 minutes a day, by the end of the year, you've read 61 hours. So think you probably read a couple books just by doing 10 minutes a day. So when you're talking about the consistency piece, do show up every day, the 100% is easier than 99%. You mentioned the consistency piece. You don't have to blow your brains out over it either, right? You can do, I play guitar. If I play guitar 5 minutes a day, that makes it so I just have that muscle memory, that connection, where I can now feel it. If I forget to play or I don't play, there's that little bit of like rust, you knock off the rust a little bit, right? And same thing with the stretching, and same thing with the gym. Like it can be a 10-minute workout. You know what I mean? It can be a 5-minute brisk walk around your neighborhood. It doesn't have to be this, you know what I mean? We have this idea, like you say, the all or none. It really doesn't have to be that way. In fact, that's like almost like a built-in excuse, or, it's just in your own way.
Have you dug into the archives of past Knockin' Doors Down podcast episodes? The Knockin' Doors Down podcast archive is available to you for free. Check it out. Here's a snippet from when Charlie Sheen was on the podcast.
AA is not the best place for a famous atheist. I kept looking for that fucking chapter. But it's not a one size fits all. Sure. It's like saying that we all think the same, like our brains are built the same. They're just not. Right. Yeah. There's such uniqueness involved.
Check out this episode and so many more in the Knockin' Doors Down archive. And while you're at it, hit that subscribe button, give this video a thumb up, leave a comment, and share with somebody else that you know will get value out of the Knockin' Doors Down podcast. I've seen it, and tell me if you haven't or have as well, as that there are people that it does get bananas, and it's really almost a replacement of.
Yeah.
And so when I say that, like, no days off, I mean, like what you're saying is you got to continue the enrichment path to some degree. Like, you know me, I love Formula One. It's going to be coming back in March or whatever. Sunday mornings, some of the races are in Europe and whatever. And I'm that fanatic that wakes up and wants to watch it live or whatever. But I noticed that it was like, I can set that aside. I have the technology to watch this a little bit later. And not skimp on my spiritual practices that are nice, so important to me. So that's what I mean when I say like no days off is
I love that.
Is those kind of things, whatever it is. It's the enrichment, you've helped me with that. Really, we did a whole story when we were talking the all or nothing. That is the story work we did. Because I was like, well, why aren't you going to the gym? Oh, well, I'm so out of shape, and I know I can't curl and bench what I used to. Not that it was ever crazy impressive by any means.
Right.
And so I talked myself out of it before even starting,
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. There's,
I think that's what I mean is just don't talk yourself out of things before you start, especially when you know that it works for you.
That's
because
right.
this is an experiment too. We experimented with chemicals or money, sex, whatever it was. But now we're experimenting in a totally different way.
Such a great point. I love that. Yeah, great points there. I always say too, it's like, like beer was an acquired taste, alcohol, cigarettes, all this like nobody likes it the first time they try it, or even the second time usually. And then you pretend like you do, right?
Yeah.
So sobriety in a lot of ways is an acquired taste too, isn't it? You had to work yourself up to being able to be drunk. I mean, for the most part, right? Like some people had, you know what I mean? There's exceptions to the rule, but the actual like taste of it, the acquired, it's an acquired taste, a lot of this drugging and drinking and everything else. So it's the same way, right? You're not going to just easily slide out of it. Like to your point, there's going to be, and there's that's why I love it. There's so many tools out there now, offered to you. It's the same thing as like if you had a personal trainer now, if you were to go get a personal trainer and I always have a personal, it'd be nuanced to like our different body types, our ages, what our preferences are, what works for us. Right. And it's the same thing with recovery now. I'd say over the last ever since COVID and specifically like in the last, I don't know, 3 to 5 years, we'll call it, coming out of the pandemic and everything, it's been a lot more flexibility that way and a lot more people coming out with their stories and a lot more different ways to combine a bunch of different elements or different tools to really customize the way that you recover as a person, right? Whereas before it was a lot more rigid, and granted, there should be some rigidity in there, specific to, again, when you get, the all or nothing thing, like the drink's got to come out of your hands. You can't play footsie with it anymore. It's done. You've crossed that threshold. There's no going back. There's a certain threshold that you cross with drinking and drugging. There's no hope for moderation. I know that's going to sting to hear some people that are still in that phase.
Yeah.
There's just no way to do it. And trust me, I have tried. I tried for 4 years, right? 4 years straight of just experimenting with moderation, right? So yeah, to your point, man, I love that. It's about experimenting, trying different tools, different elements, whether it's breath work. Remember the yin style stuff too, right? The yoga, the breath work, especially for men. Like it's not about just going and taking a kickboxing course and, you know what I mean? Or just going to the gym, and that's great. But it's not just that, right? There's got to be the balance, the yin to the yang. So there's got to be that journaling. There's got to be, some of the things that we were getting a lot better as what masculinity is getting sort of redefined as, which is a whole other conversation. But it's like, there is that allowance too. It's to me, healthy masculinity involves like the yin, or I guess what you call it, perhaps the feminine energy, being okay with that and being full bodied with that. And then as a result, your relationships, especially with, females, is going to be so much, more enriched, is a word that you would say, right?
Yeah. Well, look, we any of us through recovery, we're going to have to embrace new ways, because obviously our ways before did not work.
Right.
It's just that simple. I mean, it's a matter of fact, it's
pretty much nails it.
Yeah. It's exploring, I have so many people that come to me, well, I had if it's 12-step stuff and they ask me like, hey, what worked for you? Well, I don't want to do that because I'm not religious. I'm like, neither am I.
Right.
Well, aren't you Christian? Well, yeah. And I explored through stuff, but that doesn't mean, I'm not telling you what you have to be. I'm gonna help you maybe explore spirituality, what it means to you. I mean, it's just a fact. If you measure the two most successful things to help people with long-term sobriety, has been a sense of a higher power of whatever kind, whatever it is, and changing your community to a certain extent.
Yeah.
And so it's all, it's all a part of that. Like, be excited about it. Like you get to experiment, you get to try new stuff and remember it. Yeah. There's no handcuffs involved. There's no sirens, no lights. Eventually, you if you're like me now, when I'm driving down the freeway and I see the CHP behind me, I no longer freak out.
Right.
It's like,
but there's still a little bit of that there, isn't there? Like when I see the I'm like, oh, a little residual that's still but then there, like to your point, there's that excitement. Oh, cool. I'm good.
Even if he pulled me over, there is nothing that about me as an individual that I, that it could be
hide or
was I speeding? As a tail light out, whatever,
Totally. Totally.
So it's all a part of that reframe of life through it and this
It is.
experiment. And like kind of figuring out who we are at every step of life, you know?
Yeah, that's right, man. And that's what it ends up becoming, and that's what I find with the people that I work with more long term.
Hmm.
It essentially becomes like more of like a life coaching thing, right? Because initially, yes, and it's always going to be based, the foundation is going to be in recovery and in sobriety and alcohol-free, drug-free, whatever it may be, addiction-based. But from there, it's like, okay, well, we've marginalized or pushed away this thing that was like all encompassing. It has tentacles in every aspect of your life for the worse. That's been removed now. So there's this big open space. The conservation law of conservation of energy cannot be destroyed or created, only just transferred, something along those lines. I'm not a scientist.
Conducted
so the
or
energy
transferred,
is,
I forget.
yeah. Somebody will correct me, I'm sure. You get the spirit of where I'm going with this, right? The energy is there, right? It's essentially transferring the energy, right? So what are you going to do with that, right? And that's, to your point, it's like, yeah, again, getting back to the early part of the conversation, are you a little bit fearful about it? Okay, that's fine. Take a few deep breaths, get excited about it, get curious about it, for sure. And it's like, that's the exciting part. And that's what I mean. It's like, that's actually what life is, right? The way that we were living before was not living, right? It was tempering things. It was numbing things out. It was, you weren't paying attention. Like you said, to your point, you're not remembering things. You're having these great conversations, but you don't remember what you said to that. We solved all the world's problems. I don't remember a goddamn thing what we said, but we were on a roll. Let me tell you,
right.
Like all this nonsense, right? And it's, and then, now it's like this opportunity to, what kind of life do you want to live? And we know a lot about what we don't want anymore. And the excitement and the curiosity. And again, I just, if you're feeling fearful, feeling nervous about it, that's good. And you're that means you're feeling excited. Take a few deep breaths, find somebody that can help you with it, right? Either the importance of mentoring, I would love to go back just to the AA thing that you mentioned too. There is a lot of, conversation around that, and people are saying, oh, it's not for me. And, the rigidity of it. And I get that, and the spirituality of all the, like I've had, hundreds of conversations, DMs of just like meeting people, networking and such. And, that one comes up a lot. And I just like to say, like and I know like you've been to it too. So I'd love to hear your take on it. Like AA saved my life. Do I go to it? Not so much anymore. Like maybe, once quarterly, like I still, just simply because of what it did for me, I'll always have a soft spot for it because it literally saved my life. The first meeting I went to changed the course, the trajectory of my life, 100%. And when you said the magic word, community, it was because there's a community of like-minded people. I thought I was alone in my problem, right? It was specific, like the way that I drank by myself and all that. I thought, drinkers are like, I didn't realize that other people were doing the exact same thing as me. I just didn't, that early on in my sobriety. So that part saved my life. So when people are going, okay, well, I can't afford you, Jason, or you, Matt, as my coach. And as AA is free, it's available. Perhaps you can find somebody that you do resonate with. If there is a group that, okay, these people aren't my people or whatever, just challenge yourself. Okay, am I making excuses here? Right. Well, go try a different group. Like it's like going to a counselor or going to a coach even. I'm not going to be everybody's bag. You're not going to be everybody's bag. So you're going to go find somebody else, a doctor. There's so many different people that are going to be on your team that you're going to have to dating, anything, any relationship you have, you're going to try out a few different things, right? So if you only went to one AA meeting and you're like, it's not for me, and you're kind of buying into that, just ask yourself, are you making excuses? Because it's, if nothing else, it's like, it's free, it's accessible, it's community, it's those elements that you talked about, and it's going to get your mind kind of cooking a different way. So that's how I want to say that about AA, because it did it. And I understand where people have the hangups with it. And to a degree, I have those too. Like I felt like I'm going to watch what I say here, not outgrew it, but there's elements that I wasn't getting from AA that I felt the need to get elsewhere. So I'll put it that way.
I understand.
So that's sort of my take on it. It's just like, if you're hearing us talking, like, well, I can't afford that, again, getting back to the investing in yourself, I guarantee you can afford a coach or a mentor. If you just take that money that you were spending on drugs or alcohol, it opens up that avenue instantly. So there's that. And then there's the second thing. Okay, well, if you can't, there's this other thing, and it might be quote unquote, not for you. Ask yourself, are you just making excuses?
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah. It's, I think I've told you this in private. I had a guy that, oh my God, you're that much a month. I'm like, how much did you spend in drugs and alcohol? And then he calculated. I'm like, yeah, you were spending 5 times the amount that would be for me for the month.
There you go. Right?
Like, is it really that costly? If not, hey, dude, like you said, I even sent him, here's different 12-step meetings, Narcotics Anonymous, AA, open meetings, whatever it is. Give it a go. Give it a go. Because, it's, I get that for some people, maybe that struggle is, it's a Christian-based thing. Yeah, it is. I mean, Dr. Bob and Bill admitted that. It is. That's the reality they took from different stuff. But they keep the principles as pretty neutral that, like, hey, what's the worst if you go in and acquire some new skill sets and take away? Because I'm like you. I had to, I was pretty... I was about to say religious in how often I was going. It was a good part of routine, and it helped tremendously. And I agree, saved my life. But then there was a time that I had to leave the safety of the meetings to go and thrive external of that.
Yeah, got it.
And I still keep in touch with a lot of people, but yeah, I had to. Okay, now how do I take all this and get back out in the world?
There you go. I love how you put it. Yeah, that's, I think what I was trying to articulate with that without it coming across like I'm, without it being like condescending, right? Like to your point, I'm very close to certain people that are still in there. So yeah, I love how you said that, man. Thanks for clearing that up and helping with that, paint that picture for sure. Yeah. And, I think it's, when you were talking there, it gave me this idea of like, where the hang up comes is when you're in that alcohol or drug bubble, your self-worth is, isn't it? I know mine was. So I understand if you're at the stage where you don't believe that you're worth it to invest in yourself. You know what I mean? So that's something, put it out. I'm here to tell you, and I'll look right into the camera when I say it. You are worth it. I promise you are. And it goes for anybody that's like, if you're feeling about yourself, there's something behind that. There's your true self with a capital T, capital S, and you are worth it. And as soon as you can start, even if it's just a Hail Mary, and start believing in yourself in that sense, believe in yourself like you did as a kid, perhaps, or whatever it is, like whatever you need to grasp onto, there is something there. And I promise you, everything will start to unravel and just reveal itself to you if you take that step. And whatever that is, this isn't a plug for myself, Jason, whatever resonates for you and whatever it works, I promise you that you are worth it. So anybody that needs to hear that, it's important that you hear it.
Yes, sir. Hey, tell me about freedom from alcohol before we get to the random questions.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, freedom from alcohol. So I've been blessed to be working with a couple of other alcohol-free coaches is what we like to call it over there. So Coach by Chris is his handle on TikTok, Instagram. Great guy, Chris Shattuck. Shout out to him. It's he's mastermind this operation. And I'm one of his assistant coaches. And Lauren Howman is the other assistant coach. So it's basically the three of us. And if you want to join the group, it's a free Facebook group. It's about 1,500 people in there, but it's a very active group. It's great. We get some calls going on in there and different things. So it's facebook.com/I want freedom from alcohol. So again, free to join. It's private, really great supportive community. And then when we have our clients, we have a secondary Facebook group for them. It's Bold, Brave Badasses. So when you sign up for our coaching program, which is a 90-day thing, you get the secondary, like the second tier, if you will, of Facebook group. And there's this, it's a great program. It really is. And I'm very fortunate to be working with just the three of us have really good chemistry. So we have a podcast as well called Freedom from Alcohol. So check that out. And yeah, I'm still doing my, the recovery roadmap thing, which you're familiar with, kind of have that a little bit on the back burner for now. But it's always there. That's kind of my baby as well. So that's my Instagram handle. So find me at recoveryroadmap.me. It's my website as well. I'm really championing my TikTok. All of a sudden, Jason, I'm telling you, I've gone not quite viral for me. One of my posts got to 550,000 views or something like that, which is nice. So yeah, that one's I haven't got my ducks in a row to get Recovery Roadmap for that one quite yet. So I'm at TikTok. I'd love it if you gave me a follow. Anything that I said resonated with you. TikTok's my baby these days, and it's matt.alcoholfree.coach.
Cool. I'll make sure we get the links in the podcast description for people to connect with you, because it's worth it. Trust me, guys.
Thanks, brother.
It was a happenstance conversation. I'm like, oh, this guy's doing some cool stuff. I want to talk to this guy that, shoot.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, heck, I'm not that far from 3 years, coming up.
Hell yeah.
So it's
February 14th, is it?
15th.
Yeah. Okay. That was close. Not
Yeah.
quite Valentine's Day, the next day. Got it.
Yeah.
That's easy
next
to remember.
day.
Yeah.
Next day. Yeah.
Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. Awesome. Congrats on that.
Well, hey, let's jump into some random questions.
Let's do it.
All right. Best and worst advice you've ever received.
Oh man. Damn. See, I'm more of a long form guy. These like concise questions I kind of struggle with a bit. Let me give me a sec to think. It's the best advice. The one that's really resonating with me that first come to mind is when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. So very much, I guess, what we're talking about, stories you tell yourself and all that, right? Worst advice. It's just one drink.
Right?
Yeah.
I've thought about that many times.
Right?
7 hours later. Yeah, it's just one drink.
It's like we're both wrestling fans. It's like that one meme. It's like, just go for one drink. And it has a picture of Ric Flair bleeding all over himself with Hogan with his shirt hanging off him and they're hanging on each other. 7 hours later, I'm like, yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Yeah, right? Yeah. Last song you intentionally listened to. You're like, oh, I got to put that song on.
Yeah, I listened to this band called Iron Tom recently. It's Jack Irons, who was the drummer for Chili Peppers and Pearl Jam. Briefly, it's like his son. I'm not usually into it kind of sounds hipster, make me sound a hipster here, but I got introduced to this band by my cousin who's a little more into the more modern music. And they got this great EP that just came out. So it was one of the songs off of there. It's awesome. Yeah, I think it's called Gel Part 1 is the EP. So highly recommend it. Iron Tom. That's the one I popped on there last night.
Right on. I'll look it up, man. Or just message it to me so that way I'll check it out.
Definitely.
I don't think I asked you this the last time you were on. If a movie was made about your life, what genre would you want it to be, and who would you want to play you?
Oh, we definitely didn't. I like this one a lot. I'd want it to one of those movies that's got like a great blend of comedy, but like some like inspirational content to it too. I'm just trying to think of what would be like perfect. Like I wouldn't want to like dumb and like slapstick comedy, but I want it to be like uplifting, but also humorous.
A dramedy.
Dramedy. There we go. Thanks. Yeah, dramedy. And playing me, well, Ryan Gosling, of course.
Right.
Ken. I mean, come on. No, yeah. Yeah.
You don't want to go like Ryan Reynolds, another fellow Canadian?
Ooh. Actually, yeah, you might have. I guess Ryan Gosling, I think, is Canadian as well. So
is he? Okay,
he would have worked with either way. Yeah, you know what? Yeah, let's go Ryan. Yeah, I just love his delivery, and he can do like he can walk the fine line of, kind of comedy, but also come across serious. So yeah, let's go. Okay, I'm liking that. I like that selection.
I could just see him. Whoever's playing Darcy's like, yeah, Darcy. Okay.
Yeah,
that
totally
that he does.
Totally. Actually, yeah, good point. Yeah, we're going Ryan Reynolds. Yeah, that was a good impression, by the way.
Yeah. Darcy doesn't totally understand my, breaking the fourth wall and
yes, doing the Deadpool stuff.
Yeah. Heck. Superpower. If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
I always thought time travel would be pretty sweet. Remember a Quantum Leap?
Yeah.
That show. Yeah, be like that without the guy that has the. I got to actually just genuinely be able to kind of go through the time continuum and just check, places and time. Yeah, I think that'd be really rad. Just go to Woodstock this afternoon and then, you know what I mean? Go. Yeah, I think, I'd go time travel.
It would be so interesting now that you bring up Woodstock, like with the work that I do, a nonprofit and around addiction and everything else. And to be like, oh my God, this is where the heroin epidemic really started, isn't it? Or whatever.
Yeah. I think you could get such a crazy amount of perspective on just like human history.
You're right.
With being able to do time travel, like just go like be a fly on the wall for certain like pivotal events in human history, and actually like take it in and feel the energy and everything.
Yeah. Would you want to view your parents? And the reason I ask, like you bring up Woodstock, and my mom was at Monterey Pop when Jimmy, the guitar on fire.
Oh, that's amazing.
And what was it? Ginger Baker blew up his drum set, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So I wonder, like, would I want to be there and be like, wow, look at my mom. Oh, she was telling the truth. She didn't smoke pot,
Oh, yeah. I'd probably steer away from, certain, situations like that. I mean, it might be cool to see, like my mom, I guess, was a bit of a hippie when she was like in her early 20s, but get a kick out of it. I don't know that. Yeah, that might be a little too close to home. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. And then there's like that butterfly effect of if she sees me, what would happen? You know what I mean?
Sure.
So yeah, I might steer clear of certain situations.
Yeah. Bounce back. Jason, I'm totally in Back to the Future.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right? Look at the photo. I'm disappearing.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's too funny.
That's good.
Hey, what is something people might be surprised to learn about you? A hobby. I'm wondering if there's a hobby that you do and an interest that I'm not aware of. I don't know. We've gotten to know each other pretty well.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I starting to get to the point where I'm confident saying that I'm a pretty damn good singer. Which I guess, I play in a band that has records out and stuff. So I guess it's not like a super secret. I like Lego.
Oh, you like Lego too? You
I
never
do like
told
Lego.
me that.
Yeah. Well, I showed you we had the
that's right.
camper van. Remember? Yeah. I would go like the Lego route because that's not something I would necessarily tell anybody or everybody. You know what I mean? So, yeah, definitely am a big fan of the Lego for sure.
What's your favorite kit? Do you have one that you built?
Been enjoying. We're doing a lot of the Harry Potter recently. There's like an A-frame cabin that we just completed as well. And it was based off, people have like the ideas and then they send them to Lego and they kind of like decide which ones. So it was one of those, like a creator kit or whatever. And great job. They did a great job. I love like cabins and, anything to do with like nature and camping and that sort of thing. Hence the camper van one that we had. So I think that one was very enjoyable to do. We had a good time with that.
Right on. I dig it. The floor is yours, my friend. Anything else you'd want to drop?
Yeah, man. I just really want to, thank you for having me on. And it just felt like it was time, I'm like, man, I'd love to so I really appreciate, the audience that you guys have grown. I have a lot of respect for the work that you do and just the brand. So it's a big deal for me to be on the show again. And thank you. Yeah. So thank you to you and the listeners and just the KDD brand and everything. And just, anybody out there that got anything from this today, that's what it's all about. Like you say, this be of service. I'm just hoping any little nuggets that you heard from Jason and I, a couple friends, riffing on some of this stuff. That makes me feel so fulfilled. So thank you. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, likewise. And please, hey, if you did, reach out. That's the only way we know. Like,
totally. Yeah.
I know we've talked about this in our group is like the only way someone's going to know is if you tell them.
Isn't that so true? And it's like, especially in the line of work that we do, it's so important that you, and I just want to, I'm sure you're the same way, Jay. It's like, I'm not going to be pushy in the least. I really actually do want to hear from you. And, I do a lot of end up doing a lot of like free full coaching calls, but a lot of free coaching just in DMs and everything. So if there's just something it's bugging you and you need a second set of eyes or a perspective on, that's what I'm here for. I love doing that kind of stuff. So reach out and I'm never going to push any, it's not going to turn into a sales call with me. I promise that.
Same. Yeah. The offering, you know what we do. The offering's there. That's if you want it and you want 100%. To inquire, please do. Please do. And Matt's got my full endorsement. I am not only a friend, I am a client. So
there we go.
What was that? Love the Men's Warehouse, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yes, good reference. That was good.
Hey, everybody! Remember, no outside solutions to inside problems, and keep knocking doors down.